Well, the story, though, that everybody is talking about, really, I think, is the weather. It's so cold. Yes. And the question is, well, it's the question we've been mulling over all week, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
Snow?
the S word. I daren't say it out loud, or certainly not too loudly anyway, but yeah. Welcome to meteorological winter.
Yes, indeed.
Day one today.
1st of December.
Absolutely, which of course means that we've just said goodbye to meteorological autumn. And early stats are in, and it looks as if here in Wales, it was the warmest September on record. That's the warmest September on record, but the joint warmest autumn ever recorded here in Wales, and that is pretty incredible stuff. We've got COP28 happening at the moment, and these are the very things that they are discussing there. So that's how autumn was. Meteorological winter got off to a pretty cold start, didn't it? We are currently being flooded by cold air, which is working its way down from the Arctic. So there you go, there's the UK there. You can see the blues show that really for the next few days at the very least, there's no sign of that Arctic air lessening its grip. And I think we're going to have to wait until probably well into the middle of next week before we see anything slightly milder starting to arrive. So what does that mean for us here in Wales? Well, it certainly means some bright and beautiful starts to our mornings. Cold and frosty temperatures over the next few days. We could also see some freezing fog developing. Now, this is most likely inland where we've got gentle winds, and that's pretty treacherous stuff. It basically means it's fog, but when it hits your car windscreens, for example, it forms those white ice crystals and can make for some very treacherous conditions if you are driving. So something to be mindful of. But then, as Andrea mentioned, the S word, snow. Well, here's how the general picture is looking. We've got low pressure, and of course we've got that Arctic air, and where the two meet we do get wintry flurries, and there'll certainly be lots of rain in the forecast over the next few days, as you can see. So what happens to that rain is questionable because it takes an awful long time for it to fall out of the sky and reach the ground, and a variation, even a slight variation in temperature, can mean it falling either as snow or rain. There is the possibility that through Sunday night into Monday we could see some significant snow. Here are the details. So whether it snows or not over the next few days, either way, it's certainly going to be cold and it's certainly going to be frosty. We could also see some icy patches. It's just winter, day one. How exciting.
What? I knew you were going to say that. It's what we should expect at this time of year.
It's all nice.
Yes.
Well, I probably don't need to say an awful lot other than it's bitterly cold out there today. Temperatures have really struggled, which means tonight they're going to drop like a stone. We're looking quite widely at values of around -6 degrees, but actually more sheltered rural spots further inland, for example, could well dip to -8 or -9, which is a bit of a shock to the system. It should remain generally dry for much of the night, and that means frosty conditions. And further inland, you'll also have some freezing fog to contend with too. Now, that's thoroughly miserable stuff if you are heading out and about on the road, so just be careful. Some pretty tricky conditions. Out towards the west, not such an issue with fog. We've got a little bit more in the way of a breeze developing, but by the early hours of Saturday morning, we'll see a few showers starting to make some progress through parts of Anglesey, the Llŷn Peninsula, and then down through parts of Pembrokeshire too. And of course, there's the possibility that these could well fall as something of a wintry mix, most likely towards the north over Snowdonia, Eryri ground of around 400 metres and above. But we could see some icy stretches developing too. So as far as Saturday is concerned, well, yes, there are showers in the forecast. They'll rattle through quite quickly, but again, falling as something a little bit wintry over the highest hills. Further inland remaining generally dry, but the frost will linger with temperatures struggling in many areas to get much above 2 or 3 degrees. So it's going to feel bitterly cold with slightly less of a breeze. So actually out towards coastal areas where there's a little bit more of movement and actually we could see some sunshine, it should feel just a little bit less cold. I'm not going to say milder, less cold I think is the best way of putting it. But through Saturday night into Sunday, there will be more wet weather falling as a wintry mix. So there's a possibility some of us could wake to snowy conditions on Sunday, but again, most likely over the hills and mountains. Hello there, very good evening to you. Winter is officially here. The weather certainly got the message. It's felt bitterly cold out there today, and it's certainly freezing cold out there at the moment. The general setup for the weekend is going to be cold and frosty, with a risk of icy patches where we see a few showers starting to work in, and some of these showers could fall as a wintry mix, most likely over the highest hills and mountains, but there's the possibility that actually further south as we head towards the end of the weekend and the start of next week that we could see something more significant, but we'll certainly keep you posted on that. In the meantime, cold, frosty, with freezing fog developing further inland, which is pretty nasty stuff if you have any journeys to make over the next few hours. Just be careful. Temperatures dropping to around -6, -7 quite widely, but actually in more sheltered rural spots we could drop to -8 in places. Slightly less cold out towards coastal areas over the next few hours. The winds will pick up, but we'll see a few showers starting to knock on the door through parts of Anglesey, the Llŷn Peninsula, and down through parts of Pembrokeshire. So these could well bring some icy stretches early doors tomorrow morning, but also something of a wintry mix. Again, Snowdonia, Aroe, most likely in the firing line, but we could see some flurries further south. Generally, the further east you go, the drier and brighter it will be.